Let's start with how we're set up here. This is very different than the last time we were here in your home and talking. Walk me through why we need the closed captioning, how it works.
Yeah, it's really just how things happen, because I sometimes will hear things in a way that's not perfectly clear. So I use captioning. So I'm able to see what you're saying in captioning, and I'm able to respond with the question.
And that's the auditory processing.
Yeah, that auditory processing where I'll hear someone speaking, but sometimes
What's good? Osiris here, stuck in the middle. We're going to do the whole interview.
That they're saying.
We're going to do the whole interview. I just wanted to do a quick sound check, and then we'll get started.
Let's start with how we're set up here. This is very different than the last time we were here in your home and talking. Walk me through why we need the closed captioning, how it works.
Yeah, it's really just how things happen, because I sometimes will hear things in a way that's not.
So this is the start of the John Fetterman interview on MSNBC. I was very interested about this because this is the first time he's sat down with anyone in person for an interview, believe it or not, since the announcement of his stroke. The comments that I have here are because this man right here is running for Senate. I wish him nothing but the best of health. He has gone from a private person to trying to run for public office. And that's where my concern is. That's where my analysis is. So he tweeted earlier today, if you don't know, this is John Fetterman going up against Dr. Oz for Senate in Pennsylvania. I don't live in Pennsylvania. I'm going to talk real quick about why I care before we just start this interview. But he decided to run for office. Not me. He decided to be a public person. I have no empathy for him until if he were to drop out, resign, he's the current lieutenant governor. If he were to resign his position now and drop out of the race, I wouldn't care about him at all. I wish him the best health-wise, but I wouldn't be talking about him doing videos unless he inserted himself into the public conversation. I have inserted myself into the public conversation at the very small level, and any criticism is fair game at that point. The reason why I care about this is they're making a mockery out of our political system. This man right here needs a teleprompter, basically not even a teleprompter. He needs voice-to-text translation. That's why he has this big monitor in front of him. When the interview speaks, you're going to see him look at the words and read them. He can't, this isn't a situation where a guy's deaf, like he just turned deaf. He had a stroke. He has a difficulty understanding. If he were just deaf and still right of mind, that I wouldn't even be worried about this. It wouldn't be a concern. You do what you do to get through it, but your mind is still right. His mind is not right. Let's get this interview started here.
Clear. So I use captioning. So I'm able.
Let's start with how we're set up here. This is very different than the last time we were here in your home and talking. Walk me through why we need the closed captioning, how it works.
Yeah, it's really just how things happen, because I sometimes will hear things in a way that's not perfectly clear. So I use captioning. So I'm able to see what you're saying in captioning, and I'm able to respond with the question.
And that's the auditory processing.
Yeah, that auditory processing where I'll hear someone speaking, but sometimes I'll be able to be precise on what exactly that they're saying. I use captioning.
So you can make sure that you know exactly what I'm asking you.
Yeah, exactly. I know what you're being said to make sure that I'm able to give the perfect answer.
So it's not just problem processing the information that he hears, it's also communicating it back. There was a supercut that was going viral on John Fetterman. And what I am getting tired of is mainstream media twisting stories to make literally gaslighting. So for example, people had concerns about what's all this weird stuff that seems anti-white. It seems kind of hateful. And we're talking about the founding of our country in 1619. Like, why are we doing this? And then we put a label to it, whether you agree with that label being right, the technical right term or not. The label was critical race theory. The media said, well, no. Critical race theory is not taught in schools. Oh, okay. Fast forward months later, not only is it taught in schools, it's now called history. And if you don't agree with it being taught in schools, you're racist. The same thing happened with this guy. Videos released. I've done, kind of short videos on them. And people said those are doctored videos. Fact checkers got involved. Oh, they were doctored videos that misrepresented his inability to speak and comprehend things. Then what happens? A video comes out with him admitting he has a difficulty understanding and communicating things. So it was a conspiracy theory until they presented it how they wanted to present it. This interview, I'm going to start playing it again. This interview is, to me, done because they think he's going to win, believe that or not, over Dr. Oz. Well, you can believe it. Dr. Oz is a terrible candidate, so I guess you can believe it. If this guy beats Dr. Oz, I might do a live stream with nothing but me laughing for 8 hours of how pathetic that is to lose to this person. If this dude right here gets to the Senate, he will be the one deciding on money to Ukraine. He'll be the one deciding on big issues like pandemic type issues for the whole, setting the stage for the whole country. This is the Senate here, not even just the House. So now we find out, oh, it's true. So all they're trying to do is prep everyone. They think he's going to win, but most people don't know what's happening. So it would be a shock if you're just this random person going about your life and then you check D across the board when you go into the booth, which you're perfectly allowed to do. And then he comes out and starts speaking as your senator, and you're like, wait a second, he can't even communicate. What happened here? So they're trying to soften the blow, in my opinion, assuming he's going to win. He's up in the polls right now. I don't buy that. I don't think he's going to win, actually. This is the first time I've said that. I think there's going to be a red tsunami. I think these polls are off, but who knows? If he wins, they're prepping it for a soft landing. Remember, Sharon Osbourne was like, I wanted my money. She was joking, but kind of joking. She was like, I want my money back, my $900,000 she gave to Black Lives Matter. She was like, I want my money back. They want to avoid people saying, wait a second, I voted D here. I want my vote back.
Well, look, this is clearly not the typical candidate interview. You had a stroke just days before the primary here. This is the first time you've sat down with a journalist in person. You have closed captioning technology to help with those auditory processing issues. Will this impact how you do your job if elected? For example, will you need potentially accommodations like this on the Senate floor?
I don't think it's going to have an impact.
He can't understand what she's saying, so he has to look at the voice to text. How do we know on the monitor that there isn't answers to the question as well? You are looking at what could be the first out and open literal puppet that we've ever seen. It is absolutely possible. I don't know what's on the screens. It would be hard because you would have to have somebody there in real time. Or maybe they even have the talking points. Who knows if they have the questions ahead of time. Someone else could be answering literally answering the questions for him. I know we have Joe Biden. He had those cue cards and all that. So we've already gone there. But this is the most open, this is the puppet string. This is the first time I've ever seen anything like this before.
Do your job if elected? For example, will you need potentially accommodations like this on the Senate floor?
I don't think it's going to have an impact. I feel like I'm going to get better and better every day. And by January, I'm going to be, much better. And Dr. Oz is still going to be a fraud.
Didn't answer the question. So notice he didn't answer the question. Couple huge problems with that answer to that question. Couple huge problems.
Captioning technology to help with those auditory processing issues. Will this impact how you do your job if elected? For example, will you need potential?
Will this impact your job if elected? Will you need this technology on the floor?
Accommodations like this on the Senate floor?
I don't think it's going to have an impact. I feel like I'm going to get better and better.
So he didn't say whether he would need this type of technology on the Senate floor. He could be on the Senate floor, and someone could be literally already prescripted the answers, written the answers or whatever, or giving him answers on the Senate floor. And then he says, I'm going to get better in January. So does that mean you're not good enough now?
Better every day. And by January, I'm going to be, much better. And Dr. Oz is still going to be a fraud, but.
I agree. Dr. Oz is a fraud. That has nothing to do with these questions we're asking you right now, though, bruh.
I guess what I'm saying is that there really isn't anything that's going to stop me from doing this job.
I mean, it took you a long time to get back on the campaign trail. Can voters trust that you will be able to do this job on day one?
Yeah, of course. I think that the campaign itself is incredibly difficult, and even with or without having the stroke is an issue. But I've been able to run a successful campaign despite having the issues with auditory processing, et cetera. So I believe I'm going to be able to serve effectively.
You've been on this road of recovery. I'm sure it hasn't been easy. This is a serious health condition. This is a serious health issue that you experienced. What has that recovery process been like? How has it changed your day-to-day experience?
It's everything. It changes everything.
Yeah.
Everything about it has changed. Basically, having a conversation with your wife, to having a conversation with your children, just things, especially early after the stroke, the ability to really understand exactly what I'm being heard but it gets much better where I take in a lot. But to be precise, I use captioning, so that's really the major challenge. And every now and then I'll miss a word every now and then, or sometimes I'll maybe mush two words together. But as soon as I have captioning, I'm able to understand exactly what's being asked. But even after the stroke, immediately after that, I was able to read everything, and I haven't lost any memories or anything like that. It's just really the lingering issue that I have.
Yeah.
If you heard John Fetterman before this, he sounds like a completely different person. He's much more alert, cognitively aware. He's a completely different person right now. So he basically literally just hid in his bunker the whole time, did a couple of rallies with people who are all friendly to him while he stumbled and bumbled and made no sense. They clapped and cheered. He did the one interview with Chris Hayes where it was terrible, and you could see he had something there for that too. And here we are. What job would you hire this bruh for? If he couldn't get into the Senate, one of the most powerful political positions in our country, to serve Pennsylvania and our country, it sounds crazy to say that because we know he's not serving Pennsylvania. He's reading off a cue card from somebody else potentially. So we're at that place where the only job he could get in our country is to run for Senate. What job would you hire him at McDonald's? He'd be a danger. And it's not like a discriminatory thing. This is a safety thing. He couldn't do the job. So he shouldn't be. And I was chatting with somebody. He said, well, since when is that the standard? And I'm like, it's not the standard. I'm not saying it's a standard that you have to know what job you're going to hire somebody for. But he's not even fit to do normal work. Would you hire him as a CEO of a company, much less Senate? Now, you don't have to be able to run a company. What job would you hire him as a store manager, much less Senate?
I mean, I know before this you've admitted you hadn't really thought about your health very much. You hadn't taken great care of yourself. What's it like now for you? Is there some frustration in having to face this, every day?
It's not frustration. It's just a challenge, actually. And I always thought I was pretty emphatic. I think I was empathetic. That's an example of the stroke, empathetic. Yeah. I always thought I was very empathetic before having a stroke. But now after having that stroke, I really understand much more kind of the challenges that Americans have day in and day out. So I think it's really reminded me that, one, how critical healthcare is, because healthcare saved my life. I wouldn't have survived if I didn't have the kind of healthcare that I have, and it also the support that I get going to having speech therapy and just making sure getting back to being to 100%. Those are the kind of resources everyone deserves to get, because strokes can have to anybody.
Yeah, the problem is, and if you don't know, I am for Medicare for all, just some type of basic level of coverage for everyone. Basically what Tulsi Gabbard has promoted, I believe, still having a private option as well. So everybody wouldn't have the same level, but everybody would have something. So I agree with that. The problem is, can you go to the Senate and convince other people and articulate that point? That's the problem. That's what your job is. Your job isn't to have the take. Anybody can have that take. There's millions of people out there that have that same opinion, but can they do the job that's needed?
When you have moments like you had just now where you had a hard time getting a word out, right? How does that feel for someone who, as a politician, a lot of what you do is talk to constituents,
It's off topic, but it's funny how the styles come back. Like, this to me looks like late 80s, early 90s flare pants with that green and the. It's off topic, but it's always weird. Like, when you get old, you see the styles come back. I'm like, wait a second, that's out of style. Nope, it's back in.
But right now, voters really have to take your word for it. We've asked for your medical records. We've asked to have a conversation with someone from your medical team, to interview your physician.
Slower to just understand. And that's sometimes
your colleagues, right?
Going back,
you had a hard time getting a word out, right? How does that feel for someone who, as a politician, a lot of what you do is talk to constituents, talk to your colleagues, right? What's that experience like of just not quite being able to get the words out in the way that you want them to?
No, I don't think it was hard. It was just about having to be thinking more slower to just understand. And that's kind of the processing that happens.
So you say you're on the road to full recovery, but right now, voters really have to take your word for it. We've asked for your medical records. We've asked to have a conversation with someone from your medical team, to interview your physician. You've declined those requests. Why?
Well, I feel like we have been very transparent in a lot of different ways. When our doctor has already given a letter saying that I'm able to serve and to be running. And then I think you can't be any more transparent than standing up on a stage with 3,000 people and having a speech without a teleprompter and just putting everything and yourself out there like that.
What about a debate? My dude, you can't even ask. These are softball questions. This is a puff piece. They obviously are in his camp. They don't do any puff pieces like this on Dr. Oz or any MAGA candidate, which Oz is not. But they don't even do it for Oz. He can't even talk to her without. What is he talking about? What do you mean you could go up in front of 3,000 people? You can't even sit down one-on-one with me right now.
I think that's as transparent as everyone in Pennsylvania can see.
I mean, respectfully, that letter from your physician, that was 6 months ago. You've talked to yourself about how this is a journey. The recovery process can be up and down. Don't voters deserve to know your status now?
As I said, being in front of thousands and thousands of people and having interviews and getting around all across Pennsylvania, that gives everybody and the voters decide, if they think that it's really the issue.
But the voters aren't doctors, right? I mean, look, you have styled yourself as the no bullshit candidate, right? It's why a lot of people are drawn to you. Sometimes that's easy, and sometimes, like in moments like this, that gets tested. So why not follow through on that and be fully transparent and release all of that information?
No, and I said I am putting everything tested. I am being out and being tested day in and day out. And if my doctor teams already said that I'm fine and I'm ready to go on that, then I'm not really sure that's much more beyond transparent.
But we're taking your word for what your doctors are telling you, right? We haven't heard from them in months.
Well, I mean, if they believe that I was ready to do that, and I've been able to successfully do that kind of campaigning, I think that demonstrates what they've said in their opinions were actually pretty accurate.
And I know this is
even with everything set up for him, his answers they don't even make any sense. These, where are we right now? I feel like everybody in the world is playing a joke on me, and I'm the only one who doesn't know. That's pretty much like the Truman Show. This is just normal. Like, nobody's saying, like, the only people talking about this are people kind of on the right, really not even on the right, more MAGA people. Is anybody gonna say anything? I know that we have become two different countries within one country, but this is another level of kind of blind cult worship to look at this and be okay with it. I don't understand the ideology that supports this. He should drop out. He should have dropped out months ago. They all knew this months ago. They just didn't want to talk about it.
Tough conversation for you to have, but look, this isn't without precedent, right? In 2012, Senator Mark Kirk of Illinois suffered a stroke during his race. After some pressure, he released records. You've been called on by the Washington Post, the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, the New York Times. There are a lot of folks asking for this, so why not release the records?
As I said, I feel like, I've been very transparent to the point of what voters could make the decision on whether I'm fit to run or fit to serve.
In what way do you think you've been transparent?
So let's listen to him. He says, well, I got in front of 3,000 people. Okay, what did you sound like when you were in front of 3,000 people, bruh?
Eagles are so much better than the Eagles.
At first, I just wanted to check in and see how you're feeling and how you're doing.
I'm doing fantastic, and it's not about kicking balls in the authority or anything. And make sure you take advantage of this amazing opportunity to. The only thing you have, Stan, to lose is your record. What is wrong with demanding for an easy, safe kind of their income, a path to a safe place for them to win? And I can champion the union way of life in DC. If you come out and step with us, we will be able to stand with you in DC.
As I said, I put out an evaluation of my medical team, and I've been campaigning and going around everywhere, all across Pennsylvania, in front of thousands and thousands of people. And I think they're able to make their own their decision.
All right, and just to be clear, right now, are there any other symptoms or health conditions that you have not disclosed?
I have not watched this part yet. This is right up to where I have already seen. Yeah, he's wearing a hoodie because there's something going on with his neck, and we have no idea what it is. He wears scarves and all kinds of stuff. On top of that, by itself, is that no? If he doesn't have cognitive issues, if he didn't just have a stroke, oh, it's awkward or whatever. But on top of everything, so when she asked this question, I don't know what the answer is going to be.
I'm sorry. No, I don't. In terms of the auditory processing and things like that.
In terms of any symptoms related to the stroke or any other conditions, you hadn't disclosed the AFib you were diagnosed with 5 years ago.
Your
Is
neck,
there anything else?
Your neck. I don't mean to laugh, man, because I wish him the best of health. I'm not laughing. What I'm laughing at is that we do live in clown world. What I'm laughing at is our political process, the people in Pennsylvania that know this and still, because of whatever concept in their head, I'm surprised they don't vote for Dr. Oz. He's like Mitt Romney. He's like Mitt Romney light. I thought they liked those type of dudes. The elephant in the room is your neck, bruh. What's happening? So that's what she's getting at without saying it.
Right now, are there any other symptoms or health conditions that you have not disclosed?
I'm sorry. No, I don't. In terms of the auditory processing and things like that.
In terms of any symptoms?
No, bruh. In terms of anything. Anything, bruh. Not just that. Anything else you haven't told us?
Related to the stroke or any other conditions, you hadn't disclosed the AFib you were diagnosed with 5 years ago. Is there anything else?
Your neck. You're wearing a hoodie.
That is in your health record, any other conditions or symptoms that you have not told voters about?
Why don't they show the screen when he's answering? Like they're trying to be they're trying to be pseudo-transparent. Okay, we see the voice to text translating everything, and he doesn't know what she's saying. He's just reading it off of there. What? I don't know, man. I just don't know. I'm the crazy one. I'm the one that should be banned. I'm the one that should be censored. I'm the lunatic here.
As far as I know, yeah.
As far as you know, there's
As far you don't know anything. I did a video or a short where I was like, maybe we shouldn't ask someone allegedly suffering from dementia if they have dementia. I'm not brilliant. I'm just a dumb dude. Maybe we shouldn't do that. So maybe we shouldn't ask someone in cognitive decline or cognitively struggling whether he has other issues, because he doesn't even understand the question. Not that I'm aware of. Bro, you're not aware of anything. I lost my place, of course.
the debate. Are you committed right now? Are there any other symptoms or health conditions that you have not disclosed?
I'm sorry. No, I don't. In terms of the auditory processing and things like that.
In terms of any symptoms related to the stroke or any other conditions, you hadn't disclosed the AFib you were diagnosed with 5 years ago. Is there anything else that is in your health record, any other conditions or symptoms that you have not told voters about?
As far as I know, yeah.
As far as you know, there's nothing else?
Yeah, I don't think so.
All right. You've got a debate coming up in a couple of weeks. There's been a lot.
Is that reassuring? Did he see the point of you going on the interview with them, Fetterman, is for you to instill confidence in people that you're going to be all right. So if you lie, just lie with confidence. So I'm sure that's what they told him. Just if they ask this question, be confident. He's not even all there to lie with confidence. That's like literally the job of a senator, which it shouldn't be, but that's what they do. So he's like, the auditory stuff? No, bro, just anything. Nothing I'm aware of. I don't think so. Then he says yes to a question where you're like, wait a second, does that mean there is or not?
You hadn't disclosed the AFib you were diagnosed with 5 years ago. Is there anything else that is in your health record, any other conditions or symptoms that you...
Is his body language reassuring to you? Pennsylvania? I don't live in Pennsylvania. Holler at me if you want to defend this, bro.
have not told voters about?
As far as I know, yeah.
As far as you know, there's nothing else?
Yeah, I don't think so.
All right. You've got a debate coming up in a couple of weeks. There's been a lot of debate about the debate.
Wait a second. I thought that was off. Does he have a debate coming up in a couple of weeks? I just watched J.D. Vance and Tim Ryan, and that was outstanding debate, man. Kudos to both of those gentlemen. for actually caring about the system and putting in the work to prep. They were fully prepped, fully ready. They went to battle. J.D. Vance won, but he has the better arguments. Tim Ryan argued the other side pretty much as good as you can, the Democrat side. I'm trying to imagine him in the debate with J.D. Vance or Tim Ryan.
Are you committed to showing up on October 25th to debate your opponent no matter what happens?
No, I'm not concerned. I believe that's another opportunity to be transparent, and people can make their own decisions, during the debate.
Sorry, to clarify.
So she had to clarify this is not a live interview. Sorry. The question you answered no to was, she said, "Are you committed to doing the debate?" He doesn't know. So like, imagine him reading. Have you read some of the bills that they write up in all the legalese? Do you think this dude can read a bill and comprehend what's happening? Some of these bills are so painful to read. You read through the bill, then it references another bill. So then you have to go to another bill, and that bill references another bill. So you're like, I'm trying to read this bill, but then I've got to read two other bills. And now not the whole bill, but just a certain section of the bills. And then you got to put the pieces back. He can't even answer this question properly.
Are you committed to showing up on October 25th, no matter what your opponent says or does?
Oh my God.
Yeah, of course I'm going to show up on the 25th.
Oh my God.
How has your prep for a moment like this changed from the primary? Considering the auditory processing issues, some of the issues with speech, what has the prep been like?
You think he's prepping?
Are you confident going into that debate?
It's going to be basically the same kind of prepping as it would be for any debate, except I'm just going to make sure that we have captioning included in all of it.
How have you been preparing, though?
Practicing and figuring out the technological issues.
So you've acknowledged your race is very close. Josh Shapiro, who's running for governor, is sort of running away with.
So he's worried about the tech issues. What about Pennsylvanians in the U.S.?
His race, which indicates that there might be some voters who are thinking about voting for Shapiro and voting for Oz. Why do you think that is?
I think that the difference in there is that we've had over $20 million unload on us in the last 5 weeks. So of course that's had an impact on the race. And Fox News has all ganged up on us, and every night, in fact, more than every other of the candidates combined, actually, and that's a truth.
That is true.
So that's changed the dynamic there too. When the other
you know who else they ganged up on? Your girl Kathy Barnett, MAGA. I don't rock with Fox News. I don't rock with Dr. Oz. If Donald Trump doesn't get right, won't rock with him either. That's a big mistake that happened there. That's a big one. Dandada, that was a big one.
Opponent, Doug Mastriano, hasn't spent any money or any commercials or any kinds of back. So of course that really reflects, the dynamic, quite to be honest.
So with that, I mean, how confident do you feel about your ability to clinch this thing?
I'm going to run the kind of race that we've run. And of course, it'll be closer, but it's a different kind of race, a different dynamic, and it's a national call that, is going to be made, at the national level, not just in Pennsylvania. So you have resources, you have PACs, and you have Mitch McConnell and other people involved in bringing in tens of millions of dollars that just are absent in the gubernatorial race.
The president just took a major step on the issue of marijuana decriminalization, pardoning thousands. I know you had
this. We are about 12 minutes into the interview. They haven't talked about one issue yet. So you think about what's the first issue. I do interview prep just to interview friend of show Ray Studios or something like that. What's the first question to ask Dr. Oz? Legalizing marijuana? Is that the first thing on the mind of Pennsylvanians? Why are we talking about that I'm fine with talking about the topic, but I don't understand why we are going through the whole thing is about him and his health. He's clearly unfit. Then we get to weed.
Some conversations with the president when he was here. What can you tell us about those conversations and how momentous this is in your view?
Can you imagine a conversation between Joe Biden and John Fetterman? I don't know why. This doesn't make any sense, but I just imagine like two baby seals trying to fight each other. Just like, or two dolphins just bumping into each other. Like, I don't know, just something that I feel like they would be talking, like one person would talk about one thing and the other person would be talking about a completely different topic, but neither one of them would know.
I mean, I think it's really, I mean, it's going to change the nation in a way in terms of our conversation about marijuana and allowing to be on the path to bringing where it should have always been. It should be legalized, and people shouldn't have had their careers damaged for having just simply using a plant and using it in a way that it's legal in some states or it's illegal in others. You know, those kind of charges carry you for your life. And given that second chance, I think is what a majority of Americans would want to see happening. And I believe that even in very conservative states like South Dakota, you know, other these kind of states have already voted democratically to make it legalizing it. So it's really not controversial. It's just the right way to go.
Speaking of pardons, as Lieutenant Governor, one of your big jobs, one of the things that you were most passionate and proud of is being head of the Board of Pardons. I know it's something that you really take a lot of pride in, but your opponent has attacked you for some of the moves you made as head of the Board of Pardons, and he's very much trying to make crime an issue in this race. But it's not just Oz, it's also voters. A lot of the voters that I've spoken with list crime as a top issue, and some of those attack ads do seem to be working. Voters have referenced those ads to me. Do you think that your stance on clemency, on crime, might be out of touch with Pennsylvania and with this moment? What do you say to someone who's concerned that this is not the time to relax sentencing, but a time to focus on public safety?
Well, I believe that every person that had some commutation, it's a tiny fraction. It's around a couple dozen out of over 5,000 people in that situation. And every single person voted on this and supported it, from the warden, to the Secretary of Corrections, all the way down to the guards, and all 5 members of the board all voted yes. And the governor did, they signed off on that. So, you know, and I believe in redemption, and I would just ask anyone watching, I would say, if you've seen Shawshank Redemption, the movie, and if you, at the end of the movie, you would vote to have Morgan Freeman's character die in prison, then that's the choice.
What the hell is going on? What the hell is going on right now? Oh my goodness. We got some serious problems going in this country. This dude's talking about Shawshank Redemption, which was a canned line prepared, probably.
That's really that you look at the end of it. And if somebody's done 40, 45, or even more than 50 years, and they've had a perfect record, and they have demonstrated a lot of remorse for what's done, I haven't met a single person that said, yeah, Morgan Freeman should die in prison. It's all a choice on redemption. And giving somebody a chance to not die in prison that is of any danger to the public whatsoever.
But it's a little bit about priorities, right? And for voters who say, I'd rather prioritize this.
We have never, in the history of this country that I've seen, ever had an interview like this bad. Imagine you're hiring somewhere. Who would hire him to do anything right now? He has to get better. He's clearly, disabled. So that doesn't mean he gets discarded. That's not what I'm saying. he has to go through that process. Like right now, he can't work and do normal work, much less argue on behalf of the country and Pennsylvanians. He can't. This is the worst interview I've ever seen from any politician ever.
Safety of me and of my kids in and around Philadelphia than prioritizing clemency or lower sentences for criminals. What do you say to those voters?
Well, I actually have a record in fighting crime. As mayor of Braddock here during 4 terms, Braddock has a significant gun violence issue, and I ran for mayor in
Braddock has 2,000 people. Oh, last I looked, about 2,000 to 3,000 people. It's about the size of the high school I went to had 3,000 people. It's a small city.
the first place to be a mayor to fight crime violence. And we went 5.5 years without a murder in town. And we made it effectively by partnering with the police and the community. And we funded the police. We funded the police and created a strong partnership between the police and the community. So I'm the only candidate that I'm actually running on my record on crime, whereas Dr. Oz has never done anything about crime except going around and running a bunch of commercials lying about my record.
So I agree with that. Well, I don't know about the lying about his record, but I agree. Dr. Oz has not done anything, and he's a terrible candidate. This is that lesser of two evils is what that's what he's trying to say. I'm going to be better in January. No guarantees. Read the fine print. But Dr. Oz is a fraud.
But what's true is that during my time as mayor, I stopped the killing here.
Do you think Democrats have messed up on the issue of crime? Have they hurt their chances because of the defund the police movement, for example?
I don't support the fund, nor I ever have. And so, it's not really relevant to me in this race because.
So you supported Black Lives Matter, but you didn't support defund the police? That's interesting. It's very possible, but that's not a position I see very often.
I've been a strong proponent for the police and worked with a police department for nearly 14 years.
Do you disagree with how your party, though, has handled the issue of crime?
I'm only going to react to how I handled it and what I've always believed and what I've done.
Speaking of crime and the topic of drugs, Republicans in Congress want to make it easier to put fentanyl dealers in prison by reducing the quantities needed for a mandatory minimum sentence. Given Pennsylvania's devastating problems with opioids, would you co-sponsor that?
Well, no, fentanyl, should be more stiff. Absolutely. I mean, that's an incredibly deadly drug. And I agree, we have to make sure that if you are a dealer and you're putting this kind of poison in the community, they have to have stiff penalties on that. They don't have any business being on the street.
So would you potentially co-sponsor and reach across the aisle for this bill?
I'd have to see what's in front of me when it's there. But the bottom is that being an addict, we haven't been able to arrest our way out of, to the addict. But it's actually the pushers and the dealers. That's a completely different issue. And they deserve to be in prison.
On the issue of abortion, this is something that has really rocked the political world, changed a lot of political dynamics. But do you worry potentially about over-indexing on the issue of abortion and not focusing enough on issues like the economy and inflation that voters consistently list as top concerns?
No, I mean, abortion is incredibly important, and it's being very energizing by the electorate. I mean, that's a basic race, I believe, for the last 50 years. And Americans have been outraged, and they believe that their choice belongs with them and not with Dr. Oz or the Republicans, or they need Roe v. Wade. And I support that it belongs with a woman. And inflation is I mean, it is a big issue, but at the end of the day, it is a tax on working people. And at the end of the day, we believe that we have to make more things in Pennsylvania and in America. And we need to stand up and push back against corporate greed. And we need to be in touch with how the average day of a Pennsylvanian is, what their life is, compared to my opponent has no idea what inflation is in terms of what it feels like and what it really and how it manifests itself. But our campaign is running on it, and I'd like to point out too, polls have showed every issue from crime to the economy and everywhere down the line have all voted in that poll that they trust my approach and the way I look at it more than they do with Dr. Oz.
They trust your approach more. Is that what you mean to say?
Correct. Yeah.
On the issue of abortion, I just want to clarify your position there. Do you believe that the government should be able to set guardrails on abortion, or do you believe that this is a decision that should only be made between a woman and her doctor?
I'm saying that Roe v. Wade should have never fallen, and that should be codified into law. That's my answer on it, and to be absolutely clear.
But you say you want to codify Roe v. Wade, which protects a woman's right to abortion before viability, but allows states to enact abortion restrictions after that. So do you want to codify Roe v. Wade, or do you want to leave the decision just between a woman and her doctor?
I don't know how much clearer I can say. Roe v. Wade. Roe v. Wade. That's the way it should have been. That's the way it was for the last 50 years, and that's the way it should be. And we should, and I would vote. And I would vote to get rid of the filibuster and deliver that if I was a senator or that kind of a vote.
John, throughout this interview, we talked at this house back in May. We interviewed you and Giselle. Things are very different now. And when people listen to you, it's very clear that you are very much still in recovery. Now, I know you say your doctors tell you that you are good to go.
Damn, it was so bad. She was like, it was so bad. She was like, you know about those health issues? So they started out the interview with like the first 12 minutes was all about his health issues. Then they got into these the policy issues, which he knows barely nothing about, or he can barely communicate or, talk about. Then it was, so this awkwardness, I don't know if it was in the same, this could have been edited in any way, but the way the interview is laid out, it comes across as, damn, you were so bad at the policy stuff. Let's get back to, are you okay, bruh? That's what it came across to me as. Maybe, who knows how the editing worked, but ugh.
Back in May, we interviewed you and Giselle. Things are very different now. And when people...
She's like, things are different. Like, you can't communicate. I don't understand you now. Like, how am I supposed to do an interview where you can't understand me? I don't understand you. That's how things are different.
Listen to you. It's very clear that you are very much still in recovery. Now, I know you say your doctors tell you that you are good to go. But for people who are watching this and don't know what difficulty with speech or auditory processing means, people who have questions, does that mean that you are cognitively impaired or that you aren't going to be up to the job? Don't those voters deserve to know, to see those records, to hear from your physician?
As I said, my record, so to speak, is what I've spent for the last 20 years here working in public service and getting out in front of thousands of people and having interviews and talking about issues with people and going around all across Pennsylvania. I believe that's transparency.
What about voters that say that's not enough? We have more questions.
That's, I guess, will be decided on election day.
One of the In one of the op-eds calling for you to release your records, this point was made from Dr. Altman, who's a physician and writer covering health and political leaders at the Times for more than 50 years. He said politicians should realize that disclosing limited information about their health can make it more of an issue than full transparency. I know you're tired of answering these questions. Don't you think that if you just released those records and answered those calls, it would be easier to put this to bed?
Once I said, I believe that our doctors saying that we're fit to do it, and I've demonstrated my abilities and where I'm at, and I'm leaving people up to that choice.
But we haven't heard from your doctors in 6 months.
Well, but you've seen from me every day. And you've seen our campaign going, all across Pennsylvania and having from them.
I have been watching Pennsylvania television a lot while I've been here, and
that was awkward. That was awkward as hell, man. This is, I'm cringing inside right now, man. This is unbelievable stuff. This is unbelievable stuff, man. If you want to know how they can get you to put a mask, and this includes me. Don't think I'm laughing here just like, oh, I'm laughing like I'm better. You wonder how they can get you to put a muzzle on your 2-year-old to go on an airplane or to go to school? It's because you support stuff like this. That's how. They can get you to do anything. They can get you to support nuclear war over a country you can't even find on a map. They're flexing right now. They're like, stop me. We put this he could be in a coma right now, and you'd still vote for him.
The airwaves are flooded with ads. Some of the newer ads are bringing up an issue that has been brought up several times over the course of the campaign, that 2013 incident where you, and I'm quoting the police report here, pulled a shotgun on an unarmed black jogger. That's come back into the spotlight. Your opponent is trying to use it against you.
I don't put weight on that like other people do, but it is kind of funny, like in a joking type of way. Like this black dude was just out, he was literally just out jogging. They heard like a firecracker or something, and Fetterman got a shotgun on. Is like, you're going to stay with me until we figure this out. So I don't use that as a negative. I don't like using race like that. I don't know if it was racist or anything like that. So you won't hear me say that. It is a funny story, though, if you want to just joke around with it.
Oz is trying to court black voters.
That don't work for me. That don't work for me. That's not going to court me. And you talking about him pulling out a shotgun on the black dude. That's how you're going to court black voters. I don't even associate as black, whatever. But I know people view me as black, so you have to be aware of that. But that ain't court. Just as a black, brown, whatever type of vote, that doesn't court me at all. Don't try to pull this Fetterman's racist thing because of the shotgun. That doesn't have anything to do with what you bring to the table for all people of all colors, Dr. Oz. That's ridiculous. And I like Kathy Barnett, but I disagree with her on bringing that. She brought it up on Timcast. She was great on Timcast, don't get me wrong, but I'm a little different than her, and I don't bring up the race stuff as much. But she does not use race as a weapon, though. So I don't have a problem with her. Most people that bring up race use it as an excuse or as a weapon. And that's what Dr. Oz is doing here, bringing up that shotgun incident as a weapon of race. Vote for me. He pulled a shotgun on a black dude. Nah, bro, that's not going to work for me.
It's a demographic that you both need if you are going to win this race. For some people who haven't been tuned in, who are just tuning in and learning about this for the first time.
The people who identify as black, we'll see what the numbers show, but I think most of them are ignorant, stupid enough to just vote for Fetterman. He literally could be in a bed in a hospital, in a coma, and they would vote for him. That's just what it is.
What do you say to them?
It was discussed extensively during the primary and in other races that I've been in. It's been attempted by an opponents to turn it into an issue. And the truth is, the people of Braddock, a majority black community, they understood what that situation was about. I mean, defending the community, acting as the chief law enforcement officer of the town, and the people had a vote on that in the primary, and winning all 67 counties. The people didn't believe that is being weaponized against me, and because that's not what was the truth.
You've spent a lot of time on the west side of the state. You're just starting to spend more time on the east, and that's the area where, when I talk to voters, they're less familiar with you. In and around Philadelphia, you just made your first stop in Philly very recently since the stroke. Are you confident that especially Black voters in Philly are going to show up for you? And what makes you confident?
I believe that our record, and I think people will turn out for us. Particularly, I have a committed record of working within the kinds of communities that have the issues that parts of Philadelphia has: economic justice, economic development, public safety, public education. All of these issues. I've always made my career about it, as opposed to somebody that lives in a gated mansion and have 9 other mansions, that has never spent any time in any of these communities or any of these places, never done anything about fighting against crime, just making empty rhetoric or lies about my record.
This debate with Oz could be difficult. I've never seen a situation like this. If they go through with the debate, this interview could be practice for them to see, could he go through a debate? If Oz could come across as, because he's already not likable, he could come across as even more not likable if he's too hard on Dr. Oz, on Fetterman. So I think Dr. Oz, he should be doing prep with someone who has cognitive issues or pretends to. I think he needs to do some serious prep, because I have a feeling he's going to go too aggressive, because he doesn't have any self-awareness. I hope the debate goes through. That will be one of the more fascinating debates that we've ever seen.
Are you soft on crime?
Of course not. I'm actually effective on crime, and I believe in second chances, and I've run on that record.
I can't believe we're already talking about 2024, but of course, it's the way of politics these days. Is Biden the best candidate for 2024 for Democrats?
It's going to be determined on if I support Joe Biden if he runs in 2024. But it's his choice and his alone, and I would support him if he runs.
I mean, the latest news here, OPEC just cut oil production, so gas prices are very likely to go up again. And it's something I hear constantly from voters: gas prices, food prices, but filling up that tank is really painful right now. You've called climate change an existential threat, but you've also walked back support for a fracking moratorium here in Pennsylvania, citing the need for energy security. So how would you work with colleagues in the Senate toward climate change legislation while also being pro-fracking?
No, I never walked back through a moratorium. I want to be clear. The moratorium was until, and this was years ago, that they made the appropriate changes and regulations to make sure that they were, with the wastewater needed to be treated, because currently then at the time they were distributing it into the river without having it treated. And now that those laws were made, and then that's when it needs to be okay to continue on that. It was really an environmental issue there until we're properly treating the wastewater. And then after the laws have changed, then I support fracking. I support the energy security that we should have in the United States. And I've never taken a dime from the industry, and I have the opportunity to support fracking across the street. The steel mill wanted to put a fracking a will over the street, and I supported it, and I live right across from it. So I've always supported, as long as it's done environmentally sound and making sure that we're not contaminating our waterways.
So in the Senate, how will you hold both of those things? Your push for solutions to the climate crisis while also being pro-fracking here in Pennsylvania?
It's called being the truth. It means that Democrats need to be honest about our energy security, and I've always said about that, and the Republicans need to be ready about climate change. And they're both reals. And we have to find a working together and stop weaponizing it against each other and just figuring it out that, right now, fracking and other traditional kinds of fossil fuels are part of our energy portfolio. And as long as we keep transitioning towards green energy, that's the way I believe it's the way to go forward. But again, there's those two truths. Energy security is critical, but also climate change is also very critical.
So is that an issue where you might break with your party if you were especially a 51st vote?
I'm not really sure I understand your question. In terms of, I'm going to vote on what makes sure that our energy security and that it's affordable for a regular American, and it also puts us right on the right path to generating more and more green energy.
You've criticized Joe Manchin a lot, but if you were the 51st vote, would you be ready? And are there issues where
I haven't criticized Joe Manchin. That, saying that how he votes, I would vote differently isn't a criticism, with all due respect. It's just saying how you vote is your vote, and I would vote differently, and that's not a criticism. Just saying, that's a different.
Well,
I agree with that. He goes in and out. He wasn't that bad there with those couple answers.
if you were the 51st vote, are there issues where you would break with your party?
The right answer is here. I don't have any allegiance to my party. My allegiance is to Pennsylvania first, country, included in that. But number one, it's Pennsylvania and then our country. I don't have allegiance to voting with the party. What is that? That doesn't, if it's not good for Pennsylvania, and if I can't come to Pennsylvanians and make the case for it, I'm not voting for it. If I can, I think it's good, I'm going to make that case. And ultimately, I'm going to listen to the people. If I can't convince them that, by my assessment that, my decision is the right thing, then I'll have to weigh that in too. But it's all about Pennsylvania. It's an easy question to answer. Even if you're lying, it's an easy question to answer.
When it comes to core values like abortion or minimum wage, or that it's the union way of life, for that, I would be that 51st vote. I mean, whatever, kinds of issue, but I'm always going to lean in on really core critical issues that I've run my entire career on as well. Not something that's theoretical.
On the topic of abortion, I just want to briefly ask you about the news coming out of Georgia. Abortion has clearly rocked politics, and it's changing the race in a lot of places. What's your take on what's going on there?
I'm sorry. Could you?
I can repeat that. Yeah, abortion has changed the game in a lot of races right now, particularly Senate races. Right
Sure.
now, it is explosive in Georgia with Herschel Walker's campaign. What is your take on what's going on there and how Republicans are handling the issue of abortion?
Well, they aren't handling it. That's the truth. Dr. Oz likes to make fun of me that I might miss a word, but he's missed 2 words, and that is a yes or no on the national abortion ban. And it's really a truth. Yes or no?
To my knowledge, that is true. He has not provided a clear answer. I don't know why that's so hard. I'm talking about Dr. Oz.
Do I support that? And that's what I've consistently said, is that it's a critical issue. And if you're going to be our next senator, you have to give the answer.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow.
So there you have it. I'm just going to end with Tulsi Gabbard said she's leaving the Democratic Party. And this right here, I can't speak for her, but I think this right here, what we see what's happening with John Fetterman, is the reason why she's not walking away. She's running away. She's going on Rogan. She's going on Fox News. And I hope she does run for president. I think my white pill here is that the more people that see this, the more people run away from not just Fetterman, the whole party. Like anybody who thinks that's okay. There's people tweeting about it like you shouldn't be attacking people who have stroke and all that. Again, gaslighting, now turning you into an evil person when you say, well, he's not fit to run for president. I didn't say anything about his health. I hope he's healthy. He's not fit to run for Senate. And they basically are calling you insensitive, some people. That's making people run. That's why you're going to see a red tsunami, in my opinion. You're going to see Dr. Oz win, in my opinion. And I don't think it's going to be a small win either. I think it's going to be like, they think Oz is down by 4. I think Oz wins by 4 or more. Just a complete guess based on what I'm seeing from polling. The polling is evil. The polling is being done on purpose to make things look differently than what they really are. And my white pill moment is you're going to see more people like Tulsi leaving. That doesn't mean you go to the Republican Party. You might go to the Libertarian Party. Or you might just be like, I don't rock with any party. But you're going to see people head for the exits. It's almost like that basketball game, football game, and you're like, ooh, the future of this Democratic Party is not good. This game is over. So I'm not going to watch the rest of it. I'm heading out. I got better things to do. Let me know what you think.